Legend has it that on April 24th, 1946, two of the Soviet Union's great aircraft design bureaus, Mikoyan-Gurevich and Yakovlev, were both ready to test what would become the nation's first jet fighter. Unable to decide which aircraft would earn that historical distinction, the story goes that the decision was left to the flip of a coin. That day, the MiG-9 won that toss and soared into history as the first operational Soviet jet fighter, with the Yak-15 following shortly afterward. I'm not sure that story is true, but I love to immerse myself in the history of the aircraft that I'm working on. And I thought that was a fun anecdote, so there you go. In this video, I'm going into the early stages of designing my 3D printed MiG-9, the hows, the whys, and some details of my process. So without further ado, let's begin. I really like early jet fighters. They have a certain charm to them that I'm really not sure how to describe. I wish I could go see this aircraft in person. It really makes a big difference towards getting an understanding of how the shapes of the aircraft actually look and feel. But the nearest museum examples are in Russia and China, so in other words, they're kind of out of reach. So for this jet, I've had to rely on images I could find online and the War Thunder example to reverse engineer the shapes as best as possible. I start by modeling the aircraft at the size that I want to build, and then I scale it down to build the test plane. I try to make smaller versions of the aircraft I'm building because I want to figure out any bugs in my design before I commit the time and resources to the full-size jet. It also allows me to see if I'm happy with the way the aircraft looks in terms of its presence. Does it capture the essence of the original aircraft? In this case, the full-size aircraft is going to be about 1500mm in length, and I'm scaling that down to 900mm for the flight testing. This video is primarily focused on the 64mm mini test jet, but I'll often refer to the larger jet to give context to my design decisions. For the larger MiG, this is going to be my first twin-engine EDF jet, but for the mini sample, I want to try bifurcating the thrust tube to keep the electronics as simple as possible. It'll also be my first time trying to do that, so I'll need to test it out on the thrust stand before I commit to it, but I'll come back to that at a later point. Another reason I always start with the bigger CAD model is because I try to get all the electronics sitting roughly where they need to be so that I can determine the scale of the aircraft. The size of the larger model was mainly informed by my fatigue with the 3D printed landing gear problem. I've spent many months trying to get the plastic 3D printed landing gear to work, and I've had some success but also a lot of failures. The larger aircraft was originally going to be 1700mm long, and I tested the main 3D printed landing gear up to 6 kilograms in 200mm static drop tests. However, I wasn't able to design a functional, steerable, retractable nose landing gear that could perform up to even 3 kilograms in similar static drop tests. I'm sorry to say that I've indefinitely shelved that line of inquiry, and through that humbling experience, I decided to scale the aircraft around what I could find in terms of off-the-shelf landing gear components. To keep everything proportionally accurate with the landing gear I purchased for this, the aircraft is limited to 1500mm in length. I don't want the MiG-9 project to be completely devoid of experimentation, however. So one of the options that I'm looking at is getting the main landing gear 3D printed in aluminium. I'm really excited to see how that goes. The airfoil thickness was informed by the landing gear. I intend to use some off-the-shelf JP Hobby retracts for the aircraft in combination with some scale-looking metal 3D printed landing gear. So I mocked up the various landing gear components and essentially drew the airfoil around them. That means the airfoil is a little bit more rotund than the actual MiG-9, but compromises have to be made at this scale. So all of that information is relevant to the smaller jet because after confirming the abstract details of what the final jet is going to be in terms of shape, I scaled that exact model down to 900mm, thereby keeping all the details essentially the same. That should give me a truer image of the aircraft's flight characteristics and allow me to make informed decisions when I start major work on the larger aircraft. The Mini MiG will be my second smaller aircraft, and I want to take some of the lessons that I learned from the Mystere 4 project and apply them to this aircraft. With the Mystere, I tried to use a grid printed out of PETG to mount the electronics in the aircraft. I chose this because I used Velcro straps to secure the LiPo battery onto the airframe, and I've had issues using Velcro straps adhered directly to lightweight PLA surfaces. It may be my settings because I tend to print with as low a flow rate as possible to reduce the weight, but I've found with repeated action of taking the battery off, it weakens or damages the print. The solution with the PETG grid removes that issue, and the gaps in the frame are great for mounting electronics and feeding wires through. The grid was composed of 8 unique parts and it had to be assembled separately. I ended up having to rebuild the Mystere 5 times trying to get it to work, so I became very well acquainted with some of the design choices that hindered rapid prototyping, this being the main one, and it forced me to ask if there's a simpler way to mount the electronics. For this prototype, I'm designing the battery and electronics bay into the main fuselage, and this time I'm going to try glossing the mounting surface with finishing resin to give it some rigidity. If that fails, I'll print a thin layer of hard plastic for the mounting surface where it needs it. That should cut down the build time and complexity in the forward fuselage. Thankfully, the actual MiG-9 has a relatively thick airfoil to begin with, and I thickened it even further to accommodate the landing gear and electronics on the full-size model, so I'm hoping that this aircraft is going to have relatively benign flight characteristics. I couldn't find any specific information about the MiG-9's wing incidence and washout online, so I opted for a conservative +2 degrees at the root and -2 degrees at the wing tip, the twist starting roughly at the halfway point of the wing. I'm using 5mm carbon fiber tubes for the main wing structure and a supplementary 3mm rod closer to the trailing edge. This may be a bit overkill, but since it's a 64mm jet, I'm feeling better safe than sorry. I'm planning on giving this aircraft a bunch of scale details once I get it flying, and to that end, I want to try adding false flaps and a rudder to make the distinction between the wing and the flap surface more apparent. On my last aircraft, I tried modeling deeper panel lines to denote this separation, but I think this effect will be a lot better. It does add a little bit more material than necessary, and naturally the false control surfaces need to be printed separately, thereby increasing the complexity of the overall build, but I think the effect will be worth it. I can never really help myself when it comes to the canopy details, so I went ahead and added them in. I intend to print this out of transparent PETG. When I designed and started testing the Mystere, I really struggled to get the thing airborne. The most frustrating aspect is that for the most part it wasn't the fault of the aircraft. I kept throwing and launching the thing wrongly, and I lost a good few prototypes to poor technique. My initial solution at the time was to build a standalone catapult launcher for the jet, and though it was a fun experiment in launching stuff, I couldn't quite get it to work when the time came. I was recommended by a few people to try a more conventional catapult design, and they even shared a few links with me, so I'm going to be trying to use that on this aircraft at some point. I've also had the opportunity to practice using a chuck glider recently, and that's improved my confidence somewhat around hand launching, so I want to try that at least once. This aircraft is going to need an auxiliary vent for the 64mm EDF, as the nose intake isn't quite big enough to supply enough air to the EDF. On the previous aircraft, I opted for a gaping hole in the bottom of the aircraft, which I didn't particularly like from an aesthetic perspective, so this time I'm going to do something like a grid. I should be able to paint over it, which will allow it to blend in a little bit more. One of the smaller design changes I made to this aircraft concerns the EDF installation. On my previous aircraft, the way I designed the fuselage meant that the EDF assembly had to be installed partway through the build. Once the main structure was assembled, there simply wasn't enough access to fit the unit afterwards, so it had to be committed relatively early in the construction process. Whilst this wasn't a major problem, it did make the assembly sequence a little less convenient. Having the EDF installed relatively early meant that I had to work around it for the remainder of the build. This made things a little bit more awkward when it came to painting, but other than that, it wasn't the end of the world. For this design, I reworked the mounting arrangement so that the EDF could be installed after the airframe was complete. It's a fairly minor quality of life improvement, but it makes the overall assembly process cleaner and more flexible. I've opted to try and fit the ESC on the MiG-9 inside the main electronics bay rather than having it sit in direct airflow in front of the EDF as I usually do. To compensate for this, I've incorporated a series of cooling channels to encourage air to pass through the main compartment and carry any excess heat away from the electronics. I'm optimistic that this should be enough cooling, particularly since the aircraft is going to be running on a 40A ESC on a 4S LiPo, which has generally run pretty cool in my experience. When I get to bench testing the fan, if I find that the ESC is running a little bit hotter than I was expecting, I'll mount it in front of the fan as I usually do. I've experimented with both magnet and mechanical latches for securing the electronics hatch, and whilst magnets are really low profile and convenient, I've decided to return to the hatch latch for the MiG-9. The main reason being I want the canopy to actually hold the flight battery down as opposed to using Velcro straps. This time I've designed it in such a way that the canopy can hold down the battery in the vertical axis, and I wouldn't trust magnets to do that job. One area where I wanted to keep the aircraft looking as clean and scaled as possible was the tail control. On my previous aircraft, the tail control arm was completely exposed, which is perfectly functional and convenient, but it does detract from the appearance, and it still bothers me today. For the MiG-9, I decided to hide the tail control arm inside the structure of the aircraft, and once the aircraft is completely assembled, the linkage should be completely concealed. There's very little space in this part of the fuselage, so access to the servo and linkage isn't going to be as straightforward as it would be if the linkage was exposed. It may take a little bit more patience, but once it's installed, it shouldn't be a problem. Ultimately, I think it's a worthwhile trade-off for that scale factor. When the panel lines are on and the false flaps are installed and I get to painting this thing, it's gonna look immaculate. The MiG-9 cannons project a considerable distance ahead of the nose, and I really want to include this feature as it wouldn't be a MiG-9 without them. Since this aircraft is intended to belly land on grass, those projecting cannons stand a major risk of snagging on the ground and causing damage to the airframe. To mitigate this, I've designed the guns as separate parts to be printed in lightweight TPU. The flexibility of the material should allow them to bend if they do get caught, reducing the likelihood of damage. I'm also considering mounting the lower guns with magnets so that in the event of getting snagged, they simply detach rather than damaging the airframe. When I built the Yak-15, I ran into some problems hand launching the aircraft because the thrust line is sat below the center of gravity. As soon as power is applied, the offset between the thrust line and the CG generates a strong nose-up pitch moment. At low speeds right after throwing the jet, the wings and horizontal stabilizer weren't producing enough aerodynamic force to counteract the pitch-up moment. The result was that the aircraft would begin rotating nose-up long before it built sufficient flying speed, making hand launching extremely difficult. Generally speaking, this problem disappeared once the aircraft had reached flying speed, but ultimately I was never able to successfully hand launch the Yak-15. I'm concerned that the MiG-9 may suffer from a similar low-speed handling problem, as the engine configuration is very similar to the Yak-15. To counteract this, I've added 3 degrees of down thrust. I really try to avoid compromising on proportions where I can, which is the main reason for the conservative angle. I must admit that in most instances I would choose form over function. And given that the thrust line is closer to the CG than the Yak-15, I'll start with this, and if it proves to be insufficient, I'll see about increasing down thrust or switching over to bungee launching to keep the proportions looking right. The MiG-9 is one of the aircraft that I've been considering for my new FPV system, and I'm really trying to make an experience that is so realistic, and in order to do that I have to make an aircraft of a certain scale. I've been designing a few different aircraft over the past few months, and I've realized that the earlier jets have a distinct advantage in my case because they're actually, the full-size aircraft isn't as big as something like, say, the Blackburn Buccaneer, which if I wanted to achieve a certain canopy size with this aircraft, it would need to be relatively large, whereas something like the J-29 Tunen would, I would say a 1.5 meter aircraft would be perfectly acceptable. Another aircraft that I was considering was the F-8 Crusader, and I would love to make one of these one day, and I definitely will, but making it for an FPV aircraft would mean that it would need to be relatively big, and as you can see, I don't actually have that much area to work with here, so eventually I will make these jets, but ultimately, for now, I need to make something that doesn't need to be super big in order to achieve the canopy area that I need. The final destination for this aircraft is for it to be the ultimate FPV experience. And if you want to see how the MiG-9 relates to my greater RC journey, you can watch the video right here. And of course, if you made it this far, thank you for watching.